Welcome to Rom Wills Money Matters. Think about businesses that will always be needed. I'm gonna tell you what, when you're thinking about the type of business you have, the best business, I'm just saying the best business. If you have a calling for something that is not like out here or people ain't thinking about, definitely go for it. But if you're one of those people who are always looking to what you can get into, I want y'all to think about what I'll be talking about in this video. You want to think about businesses that will always be needed no matter what, no matter what's going on. I'll use the tech thing for example. Now, yeah, that's very important, and people talking AI and all of that, and that's a good business to get into. But remember, we also have a bunch of tech people being laid off. There's a whole bunch of tech people being laid off, and that's a major issue right there. That's a major issue. In fact, I heard something, you know how you hear stuff, about some tech guys, all of a sudden they got to drive Ubers and everything. And, that's one thing that's not talked about, what's happening to these people being laid off. Some of them getting some tech jobs, but if the next 5 businesses in tech are laying off people too, that might be tough. Now, that's not to say that won't change or anything, and definitely, we're becoming more technical, and that's definitely an area you still want to get into. But if you're thinking about, when you think about business, think about the basics, what's always going to be needed. Like I've talked about food, any food business, people are always going to eat. People are always going to eat. Even when you hear about like these fast food restaurants going out of business, people still eating because for every fast food chain or restaurant that's closing, something else is opening up. People just want a better type of food or something different, but it's still food. If you have a food business, since people will always eat, you're always going to make money. Clothing. Now that's an oversaturated market, trust me. And I've talked about that a few years ago, how T-shirts are oversaturated. Let me get this right. Yeah, anyway, the T-shirt business is oversaturated, but that's clothing. But, except for this one woman I met back in the day who literally would go down the street with just a halter top on and some shorts, even in cold weather. Well, in cold weather, she'd have a halter top, shorts, and a big coat on. Other than her, everybody got to wear clothes. Everybody got to wear clothes. So if you're a clothing designer, shoe designer, you can always make some money. You just have to have some fly stuff. That's it. But people are always going to need that. Real estate. People are always going to need a place to sleep. I remember a real estate guy who owned like several properties. He just said that casually. He said no matter what, people are going to need some place to sleep. In fact, that's always promoted as a way to really make money, real estate investments and everything. In fact, you got people who do seminars where they focused on real estate. So you can always do something there, but you want to think in terms of what's there, what can you do, what can you put together, what will people always need? Like during the pandemic, people always needed to clean. People always needed to clean. So, it was like, boom. So it's like always something that you want to do. Always think about what will be needed. All right, think about like if it's cleaning, like my oldest son, he's getting a summer job just basically doing landscaping and everything. People are always going to cut the grass. Or when you think of cutting, think about one business people never talk about, but they never complain. That's hair cutting. The barbers, like I always joke about the barber blessing you on my main channel, but have you noticed barbers don't complain as long as they good. Oh, as a barber, you just got to be good. Hell, decent. And you always going to make money. I know a lot of barbers. Now, yeah, you still got to do a little bit of work and you got to make sure you have a good atmosphere. But shoot, I knew one barber, he didn't even work out of a shop. He'd just go to people's houses and cut their hair. People always need that. You know why? Hair always grows. Hair always grows. Think about something like that. Hair will always grow, or You know, you think about businesses that cater to women. Businesses that cater to women and their beauty. They always want that. That's something primal in a woman. She wants to draw attention. That could be a hairdresser. You notice you get some women becoming billionaires based off of women's products. And it could be just a simple lipstick or something like that. But it will always be needed. A feminine product. They are always going to bleed. So you want to look into all of that and everything. All right? So that's the thing. That's the thing. You know, I was like, you want to, when you're thinking about a business. Now, like I said, if you got something that's totally different, something I didn't mention, something that's unusual, but you're skilled in it, still go for that. Still go for that. You still want to make the money there. But if you're just thinking, okay, what can I do? What can I do? All right, think about food always. That's always going to make money. Clothing, that's always going to make money. And in so many ways, you might say, like, let me use a clothing example. One of the plans that I was looking at a few years ago was hitting up a bunch of vendors markets, flea markets and stuff with off-season fancy clothing. And I just didn't do it. And well, you know, that little COVID thing got in the way. But I even had an idea who I could get to work there and everything. I looked into it. And I was like, oh, no, because you gotta have a lot. Because the clothes I was thinking about getting polos and Lacoste, and they would have been like technically off season, but you know, with stuff like that, you see that little gator on it or polo horse on it, it's going to sell. Only thing was, I said, well, yeah, I would have to get somebody. You would have to have two people basically working in the place at all times. And it's still in the back of my mind too, still in the back of my mind. But it's clothing though. You know, you go to any flea market or anything like that, they always have clothes. People always gonna buy them. You just selling them for cheaper. But it will always be needed. People always gotta put clothes, they gotta eat, they gotta sleep, anything dealing with real estate. Like, you don't necessarily have to sell the house. You could be a good contractor, you know, a painter or something like that, because people are always going to need that. People are always going to need that. Or, like I mentioned, my son was getting into landscaping. But I've seen some guys, they actually started out major landscaping companies just cutting their neighbors' lawns. In fact, when I was living over in Edgewood, when I had a house over there, it was, you had that. I had to cut the grass all the time, but it was like a young guy who was going through, and I said, you know what, he gonna have a serious business when he gets older. He was always going through the neighborhood cutting people's grasses and everything. For what was back in the day, $20, it's probably about $50, $100 now, but still, lots of money. See, always think in terms, if you don't have a specific idea, start looking into those businesses that are always going to last. Like, let me take the food thing. Even during the pandemic, grocery stores were open because it was food, you know? Now, yeah, the restaurants closed and everything, restaurants and stuff, but yeah, they closed, but then the food places were open. You always want to look into that. And even some of the restaurants, they were just different. They're like takeout only or something, a whole lot of them. So always look into those type of businesses. So anyway, y'all know the deal. Let's go make that money.